Johnny Q Law with a signal blue car. Till I fall on these nets, gonna keep the fiber lit. All these haters in the game, go and run a slash quit. Slash quit, slash quit. We toolin'. We toolin'. We toolin'. We toolin' up. 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 Golly G, played it close to the chest like a hug from J Street. Calculated execution, made intrusion kinda neat. Did them practical but tactical and use a hyper fleet. Unprotected Jenkins. 15 grand in the bounty if your boy ain't mistaken. Say domains for the taking, that's the bucket fuel breaking. DNS proportion, baby, make that Bailey wake awaken. InfoSec apprentice. Developing a system like the one and only dentist. Dennis following the gospel, give your soul a quick replenish. Garbage collection is endless in this mental left defenses. User raw successes, steady user raw requests. And I move walk in your server with a Rusha more or less. Bitch, we taking over. Like Mitnick Jack the chipset from the homie Mikey Grover. Yeah, ThugCrowd. ZLZ. Zuff. You know, we out here, Pink Panther. Killing them all, baby. Huh.
Leave no music behind.
Welcome to ThugCrowd Radio. Please listen to this important disclaimer in its entirety. All participants of this ThugCrowd Radio episode are characters. None of the stories told during these episodes are based on facts, truth, or reality. All works of fiction displayed during this episode that resemble real-life situations are coincidental and are not meant to serve as guides or tutorials to commit any crimes in any country. Please consult an attorney for local laws and regulations. And as always, trust your inner criminal.
I do. Oh.
I think we might be now.
We are live now. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So, ThugCrowd, we're back once again. It's been a kind of a slow week for InfoSec, but we have some cool guests that we will talk to pretty soon. Jared?
Yeah, got a whole load of people here this week. It's good stuff.
T-Prophet, Philip, what up?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, myself, so I'm gonna mute that.
Everybody compiled and ran the show notes, right? we're all good.
I'm listening.
Caught up on the C code tutorials from ThugCrowd.
Yeah. No, just don't bother running TCP dump or Wireshark or anything. Just leave that alone. And trust in the ThugCrowd.
That's probably a good idea. Cool. So, did anyone get up to any cool stuff this week they'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I kind of reached a major milestone last week with a project I've been working on. So Travis Goodspeed has a hardware project called the Good Watch, where he created a aftermarket board that goes inside of the original calculator watches. So it can do tomfoolery, such as being a radio transmitter. You can do Morse code, pot sag. You can also have a frequency counter in too, so you can be that guy who goes like, "Oh, let me go ahead and hack into this guy's fucking radio and find out what frequency he's using." And I ported my research for doing jukebox tomfoolery with touch tunes. So you have a working touch tunes remote in a Casio smartwatch.
That's sick.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
Some dope
You've
stuff.
been you've been working on that for quite some time. From what
That's
I
like
recall.
that's literally my fucking one trick pony. It's like the only thing I've actually done legit research that I thought was pretty fucking cool, and other people are thinking it's cool. And it's
Yeah.
like, hey, can you port this to this project? I'll give you the board. I'm like, whoa, all right. This is like $300 worth of work right here you just gave me. I'm just gonna go ahead and not break this and do my best to deliver a product to you.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it
a
was
good
kind of touch and
project.
go for a minute too. You had some scares, if I recall, right?
Well, that was just mainly just like time of trying to figure things out. I'm not a C programmer. My background's like object-oriented programming with Python and Java. So I was like, all right, let's do something a little more interesting with C. And yeah, that was the experience. It's pretty good too.
Hell yeah, man. Good.
So there's some good news in the Seattle community. Erratic was transferred today from the Federal Correctional Institution, CTAC, to the halfway house in Seattle. So she's still under BOP custody, but she'll get her own room and not be housed with, in a male unit with
The
guys,
job.
which has kind of been bad.
And sorry, who is this again?
Erratic is also known as Paige Thompson. She was arrested a couple of months ago and accused of committing the Capital One breach. The government's tried really hard to keep her from having a fair trial. She's been completely locked down in a federal prison, held pre-trial, and it's pretty rare for anybody in a non-violent case to be held without bail in a federal prison. But the government argued that she was a threat to the economy and the U.S. banking system, and so that's why she needed to be held in custody.
Yeah, it's a rough situation. I've followed it as much as it's kind of come across kind of my eyes on Twitter, and she admittedly, allegedly at least, made some statements and did some things that would make people nervous, but treating somebody like they're going to like eat people's faces off if they're treated fairly, I think is taking it way
Honestly,
too
it
far.
concerns me how much time people spend behind bars before they're sentenced.
Oh yeah, and I mean this is a really complicated technical case. It could be she's being defended by Brian Klein along with multiple other defense attorneys. Brian, you might recall, helped with the malware tech case, and
I remember there being a defunding issue there too. So what's the deal with that?
So he's representing Erratic pro bono because Erratic has some really difficult circumstances and is indigent. So he's willing to step up and help out in this case, and I think that that's the right thing to do. So really happy that he's on board. This could be a couple of years before it comes to resolution. It's a really complicated technical case. There's a lot of experts that'll be required to testify. There's a lot of legal questions, and I can't really get into the case or what the facts of it are, but I can say that it's really awesome that she's not in prison, because if you're in prison and you're locked down there, you you really don't have a very good opportunity to actively participate in your criminal defense.
Yeah.
It's really hard to have a fair trial in there. So I think that's, the main reason why the government wanted to lock her up is that, they have a real advantage for the prosecution. If she's not able to get out and work with her defense team pretty
Yeah.
much full time.
I think the interesting thing that Kim just pointed out, though, is the amount of time that people spend behind bars before even going to trial, in which they may be found innocent and not guilty, and yet they've spent years and years behind bars.
Yeah,
for
or they might
crimes
be
that
found
they're-
guilty of something, but it's like, way less than what the prosecution was alleging, and
Yeah.
the sentence would have been, way less for that. It's
There-
not uncommon for people to get released for time served.
Is there any
It seems to me
place
that
that people
innocent-
can donate or donate resources?
Yeah, actually, there's so Shady Tell, who you guys might know from Tour Camp. They run a very interesting phone company. They're at Shady Tell on Twitter if you want to know how legitimate Shady Tell is. But they're running a fund for her, mainly for commissary and so the thing is she doesn't get everything that she needs in prison or while in BOP custody, and so they have a thing called a commissary that you can buy some stuff from, like shampoo and that kind of thing. So if anybody's feeling like they want to contribute to that, send it to Erratic Fund. You can PayPal to erraticfund@shady.tel. Just to be clear, I'm not in Shady Tell. I have nothing to do with this. They are a 501c3 nonprofit, and they've just chosen to step up. So I think that's pretty awesome. And it's like, I'm pretty hands off with this. I want to support the defense team in any way that would be helpful to them. And, certainly, get the word out that Erratic can use all the support that she can get.
Sure.
Beyond that, it's hard for me to say much because I don't know the facts of the case, and I am not and wouldn't be involved.
I think it's good to know that Shady Tells a 501c3. That means that they're accountable for what they do with their money. And so I personally feel a little better about donating to places that have taken the time to go through the paperwork and be accountable. So very cool.
Yeah. So if money goes into the Erratic Fund, Shady Tell's committed to just passing that through. And of course, Shady Tell does a lot of really good work around hacker conventions. They were at CCC. They ran the phone system there, and they'll be at Tour Camp, presumably, coming up this summer.
That's cool.
Yeah, very cool. Anybody else do anything fun?
Had a little minor heart attack. I thought the stream died again. Shout out to the amount of RAM that the Chrome tabs require. So we should probably get into the news and get started, and we can go back to stuff that's been going on once we get into our interview stuff later in the show. So the first thing, if everyone has the show notes, is that Google is buying Fitbit for $2.1 billion. And so, do you guys think that this Fitbit RTOS and hardware is worth $2.1 billion, in their stock? Or is it
not sales of the devices and services, but the data mine.
Data.
Like
The
Google,
telemetry.
Google will know people's heartbeats and where they walk and shit. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's pretty
They'll have
scary.
all kinds of medical data.
Definitely shout out to the security engineers at Fitbit, though, who they working on the RTOS stuff and their internal platforms and stuff, because at least at some point they've had some security done.
Yeah, well, I think I was just going to chime in that I think it's important that to separate systems from people, right? So the Fitbit folks, the security folks, whoever, those are people inside of a system, and you can reach people inside of a system. Systems as a whole are pretty tough to break down. As somebody who's tried to kind of push against them in different ways. And so just hearing you talk about that, yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah, they have a I think HackerOne or a ThugCrowd program.
ThugCrowd, I think.
So, yeah. So it's always good to see when companies do that they at least are willing to listen and respond.
And hopefully it stays that way, right? Instead of getting absorbed into the
well, how do you
machine.
opt out? So say you're a consumer and you buy this, right? And you've trusted Fitbit on the surface, and now Google acquires it. I don't know, like T Profit or Kim, like how do you opt out of that? How do you get your data back? Is that possible?
I think.
I mean,
Wow.
like law or what you know in the news, what you've seen people talk about, like, is that even something that people are even chewing on? Like this was something that folks were presenting on at the B-Sides Boise, some BSU students, and it was super intriguing as far as the law and the news and the desire to pull your data back. But like, where do you see that in the landscape of things?
I mean, obviously, once Google has data on someone, they have it. Pandora's box has been opened. So you need to. I've been asked about security hardening from Chrome because Chrome is like a major vehicle for Google's data mining, and I had all kinds of suggestions for someone about how to lessen their data mining footprint from Google's perspective. But if you use an Android phone, you cannot completely eliminate it. You can't completely eliminate Google's data mining. I use Brave browser and Firefox on my phone. I switched from Google search to DuckDuckGo search. I've limited how much they can data mine me, but they can still data mine me.
Yeah,
sure.
The Chrome ecosystem.
One of my recommendations is just to pollute the data. Put your Fitbit on your dog.
Yeah, but then how do you actually track your progress though? You know what I mean? Like versus just moving to a different platform.
Well, I think
maybe isn't quite as evil.
There's also the APIs that are available, Apple Health and Google, whatever it is. I'm not sure if the Fitbit app is currently using that. I assume it plugs into Apple Health if you choose it to already. So a lot of people who are in this demographic of using not biometrics, this wearable technology to monitor themselves have already opted in a way to these larger companies. So for some people, it might already be too late. But if it's not too late for you, try and do what you can.
Just one thing I'll put out there: if you become by checkboxes a citizen of Europe and demand to be forgotten, that they tend to not really investigate the truth to that all so much. So maybe something to consider.
So why did you register a Fitbit with a real name to begin with? That's probably a better question.
Good question.
I don't think it matters, right? Like they have access to the backend APIs that can pull the phone number and all those fun permissions that they ask for right at the beginning.
Yeah, sure. So there's I don't know. I don't think they can pull a phone number out of a Fitbit, but
I think
well, now they can with Google. With Androids and Google accounts, they already know that.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. If you tie it to a Google account, I guess that's true. It's my approach has been to just kind of obfuscate what social media and giant tracking companies know. So if it's to some degree, it's garbage in, garbage out. So I like the approach of polluting my profile with a whole bunch of random shit. And that makes tracking entirely possible, but also less meaningful.
Yeah, there's, if you're going to pollute as well, like cross-contamination and all that kind of business that we've talked about a whole lot comes into it pretty heavily. So, or just don't buy wearable tech. And
yeah, well, I think where my question was going is like there's the concrete, technical truth that we all know, which is once that, like Kim stated, once Google has access to it, who cares what was signed where, right? That data is gone. They own it. It's theirs to shove into their machine learning and AI stuff. But like I was over visiting my dad this weekend, and I looked at his wrist. He didn't have a Fitbit on, but he had this thing that was a clone of a Fitbit, and he was just told to wear it to get better insurance rates, right? That's my
What?
dad.
Ooh,
And
yeah,
that's a real
Hey.
thing in the States. Like that is happening. And so I'm having a discussion, but and my folks trust me, but like, you know, how do you how do you explain that to somebody enough to care that doesn't have the domain expertise that maybe all of us here in this chat room have? And so
it's very relevant because right. Sorry, I was going to say it's very relevant because right now it's open enrollment, and a lot of employers are pushing for all of the DNA testing for cheaper rates, all of the wear this device. I'll pay a little more for my privacy, but not everybody will.
That's amazing.
I hate to get all political here, but Bernie Sanders is the only hope that the United States has right now to prevent medical insurance companies from exploiting stuff like making people wear Fitbits so that they can estimate the risk that a particular patient might carry. If we can just like completely eliminate the profit motive from health insurance, a lot of those problems would go away. I mean, obviously, data mining would still be a problem, but that particular aspect of it wouldn't be quite as much of a problem.
I mean, that's kind of the crux of the entire insurance industry is the money, though. So, I mean,
exactly.
It's not going away anytime soon.
I think Bernie might be a step in the right direction, but at the end of the day, if they have an opt-in button that you can click for 30% off, people that are struggling are going to click the button no matter what kind of regulations are put in place.
Yeah.
But it's removing the profit.
30% off medical insurance? What if medical insurance wasn't something that someone bought? And it was all
then there to me is actually more of a concern. You know, I fully understand the advantages, or maybe not fully, but I do see some of the advantages of the single payer system. But getting rid of the financial profit, I can opt out of the financial if I'm able to. If I'm able to pay that extra bit to not have my DNA given. Then once it is a government program, they could basically say you can't smoke anymore, or you can't do this anymore, or you have to eat 5 things of vegetables every day, or we don't insure you.
Seen that.
This is the requirement now. Right?
I haven't seen that in
we
Canada.
Haven't seen it.
I'm Canadian. I haven't seen it in Europe or anywhere else in the world that has publicly provided health insurance.
But you're talking about the United States, which you're not rational.
we
there's no such thing as private health insurance, then that would have to go away.
So
what about death insurance?
I can and talk instead of talking about hypotheticals. We can maybe this is a good spot to end it, but I'll end it with this little story, right? My aunt, right? My wife's aunt, right? She didn't have health insurance, and basically the system when she was diagnosed with cancer, it was the worst death imaginable. You have not seen somebody die a more inhumane, at least I haven't, a more inhumane death, and I've watched people die before. And so I guess instead of the hypotheticals, I try to go back to what I've seen, what I've experienced, who I love, who I'm willing to invest and sacrifice for, as kind of like a concrete way to dial in that conversation. So obviously, like trying to push for a political system like that we're kind of talking about here. That's a really hard thing in this chat, but my encouragement is to make it personal. Look at somebody who's suffered and then figure out how to help them no longer suffer.
All right.
And I think that's what Bernie's been doing. Like he's been doing videos of people who have gotten cancer diagnoses and stuff like that. And the families who have been financially ruined because a family member got cancer, for instance.
I think
It's definitely worthy of its own show in a
Yeah.
sense, because it
But this has nothing to do with
goes so deep.
cybersecurity. So this
Right.
is a tangent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
With that, let's move on to the next one that we've got on our notes. It's a undercover nationwide scam on Airbnb, which is I guess mostly US based again. And I think Shell, you had a pretty good breakdown of the scam.
Yeah,
That's fucking brilliant. Wow.
it's a pretty well put together thing. It's, about 10 minutes before you check into your Airbnb, someone's, your host calls and goes, "Hey, the toilet's overflowing, whatever, the plumber's here, you can either cancel or we'll put you up in a nicer place that we also own." And then you go, "Yeah, okay." And like of course, like she mentions a lot of like social engineering techniques, right, to like kind of like make it very urgent and all of that stuff. And then they just ended up putting you in a total shithole. And there's nothing you can really do about it. Airbnb,
and they have also like in the images of these different places, they've got like the same furniture, the same art on the walls. And then you have a look at some of the places that people have ended up in, and there's cigarette burns in the sofa and whatever.
It's very much like they went to the street and picked up the furniture people were throwing out.
It's straight up.
One thing I might mention about that though is I recently actually used Airbnb, and I had somebody from the property try to use my actual cell phone number to contact me and start complaining about actually the temperature in the fucking house, because apparently the schedule that they set they didn't like anymore, which literally it was a locked schedule that they had set. Anyways, so they're complaining about it, and there's a really big warning in Airbnb's app that says any communication you do between each other, do it through our app. And I get the sneaking suspicion that this has a lot to do with out-of-band communications that Airbnb can't legally refer to and hold these scammers accountable for. But
yeah,
I think that's basic. Like same with eBay, same with PayPal and whatever. Is like do your transaction through the platform, so that, well, I mean, if it's a legitimate transaction, I guess. If you're maybe you want to do it through Tor or Signal, that's up to you. But if you
There's a difference though, man. Like eBay actually will help you if somebody does something shady to you on their platform, and Airbnb totally won't. They are such scammers. If you stay even one night in the property, you can expect almost no help from Airbnb. And if you don't stay there, you might not be able to expect any help either, because it's kind of, your word of the host. And you're not the one that makes Airbnb money. Like they're on the host side because that's who makes the money.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also the thing that was mentioned.
Airbnb is one of the most hostile companies in travel and tourism that I deal with. There is no honesty in pricing on their website at all. Go and look at any property, and it's not uncommon for the total price at checkout to be something close to double what's actually advertised.
Yep.
I'm not a real fan of government regulations in the space, but I think that there is definitely room for improvement in platforms like these. You should get what you pay for, and if you don't get what you pay for, you should be able to get your money back.
I think it just really
at
brings
minimum FTC, right?
Yeah, bring it more in line with the hospitality industry with hotels and whatever.
In hotels, the interesting thing there is that if you book a hotel through a platform like Expedia or Booking.com or any of those, they actually have a reason to have your back instead of the hotel's back.
Yeah. And also, pro hotel tip: next time you're at DEF CON in Vegas, don't get your upgrade on Expedia or whatever. Wait till you're at the desk and you'll get it cheaper. There's always a spare room.
Yes. Tip your check-in hosts liberally. $50 goes a long way for a week.
I only
Battery will
stayed.
shoot you right there.
I only stayed in an Airbnb once. It was in May. I was in Ottawa, Canada, covering the Cyber Titan competitions. That experience was good. I spent like a couple of nights in kind of a townhouse within walking distance of the core of Ottawa. But I think if I had been in 5 or 6 different Airbnbs, at that point, I would have run into a scam.
Well, it's not even just the scams too, because it's we've seen articles on people finding cameras inside their Airbnbs and
that's
all
weird.
this. There's a lot of
like microphones that
and
detect
inside
the
hotels.
volume levels.
Yeah.
Stuff. That'd be so weird.
I mean, I've seen penthouse Airbnbs with like, jacuzzis and Street Fighter and private cinemas and shit, and they've all been like dope. But and free internet and all that sort of stuff. One of them actually had security cameras that you could put on any TV in the place. That was like crazy. So there are like obviously some really good places on there if you find them, but I mean, it all comes down to like rolling the bones, really.
It's unregulated though, right? Like the hotel industry is heavily regulated, whereas Airbnb is kind of the same as Uber and Lyft, where it's you're dealing with you're at the mercy of the people or corporations pretending to be people that you're dealing with. And personally, I'd rather deal with a corporation that is afraid of litigation.
Well, I've stayed in a lot of really bad hotels around the world. I've stayed in some great Airbnbs and terrible ones. And I think that, really the argument isn't like, whether an Airbnb is better or whether a hotel is better. I think that, for me, I actually prefer staying in an Airbnb because when I'm traveling in a place like Armenia, it's pretty awesome to have an apartment right in the center of town. I stayed in a building in Minsk that was like owned by the KGB, and they still have the KGB down there. It's like down the street from the KGB office. And I mean, you're not going to get that kind of experience, like, literally any other way. But, you could be walking into the awesome apartment full of KGB agents, or you could be, renting from like a shell corporation of another shell corporation owned by this shady dude named Shrey.
Or you can stay at a Hilton and not have to worry about the FSB.
LLC. So I'm gonna keep that word. Like if you want to have a Shreycation, like if something terrible and shady happened to you, that was a Shreycation.
Straycation. I like
Straycation.
Oh, a straycation. Yeah, you're probably right.
So, I guess it's still later. It'll be all right.
Let's move on to the next one. Basically, we're now seeing Bluekeep at the level where people are using it to drop crypto miners and other lame shit on boxes. So I guess that's in the toilet now.
You think it'll get fixed quicker now that it's being actively exploited all over the place?
No.
Yes. Oh, I do.
I don't think so. But like, I mean,
what did it take for SMB1 to start finally getting patched? Ransomware. And
I mean, they just took all the yeah, you just take all the boxes offline using the ransomware, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Once there's consequences, people tend to start fixing shit.
Yeah, I think the reliability of the exploit is of the exploits available has started to rise as well. Initially, we only saw a couple. The Metasploit module still is pretty bad. You can get it to work if you blue screen your inbox a few times, and you're lucky enough to have your target is in the predetermined list. But yeah, I'd be a little bit interested to see what the success rate of these people who are dropping is, because I'm going to assume that it's pretty low.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And then it's
currently
mostly like Azure boxes, maybe some AWS boxes, but
I did see that Marcus was working on a Bluekeep honeypot today.
Yeah, I saw that it's too as well.
That's pretty cool. That is,
Which
I see a lot of
I think
I see a lot of parallels between Eternal Blue and Blue Keep.
yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
obviously
exactly.
they're very different vulnerabilities in a lot of ways, but there are some parallels, right? Like
Especially
with
when it comes to. I'll go ahead.
Eternal
Sorry.
Blue, the patch for that vulnerability existed at least a couple of months before WannaCry broke out.
Mm-hmm.
Blue Keep, the patch for Blue Keep has existed since May, when the GCHQ and the National Cybersecurity Center discovered it. I wonder, because this pertains to legacy versions of Windows, and a lot of enterprises run legacy versions of Windows because of driver support. I wonder if administrators with networks like that forget about patch management for legacy versions of Windows because they just assume that because Microsoft doesn't officially support it anymore, they're not going to get any more security patches for it.
I think the
I think
WSUS
it makes the things for sure. Like, but I think industrial control networks and systems play a huge role in that. There's a huge push from Siemens and other companies to not update because it'll break their software, and then you're left with power companies that are running insanely vulnerable versions, and they think that they're safe from error gaps, and they're not. And it takes stuff like this where it's widespread and easy for people to wake up.
When I was researching SCADA and ICS vulnerabilities about a month ago, I found that a lot of workplaces, especially food manufacturing and areas like that, they'll take a machine that was air gapped and they'll put it back into the main production area.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see
It
that
was
with
really fun working in that sector. It was horrifying. And they'll actually do that, ironically, sometimes for the purposes of updating the machines and patching them. Meanwhile, they've inadvertently exposed the machine to the wild internet, where it's been wormed by the time they are finished quote patching. So real fun times. And then it's brought back into the air gap and is free to just run amok and have fun.
I mean,
You've seen firsthand things that I've only written about.
Yeah, it's.
I did get to talk to Marcus yesterday. He is not the most verbose person. I mean, as an interviewer, I love it when I ask a question and I get paragraphs out of my subject. Marcus Hutchins is not that kind of interview subject, at least in my experience. He didn't mention the honeypot that he was making today. He didn't mention that to me. I wish he had. I think his nature, he's kind of elusive, which I can understand given his background and all the shit that he's gone through.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't give someone more information than you absolutely have to.
Agreed. I mean, think of how he's been burned in the past. So I can imagine that.
Talking about the air gaps though, when we're talking about remote desktop exploits specifically, like there's we're talking about air gapped networks, not just singular air gapped machines, which often if you have the back of a factory, the machine might not even have Ethernet near it, so patching that is different to something that you're going to put on the flat network back in the the internet routable network. And
I assumed the most effective way to patch an air gap machine is that the patches would go on some sort of removable media that has been thoroughly scanned for malware, and then the removable media has to be mounted to the air gap machine.
Yeah, but the problem with that is
read-only CD-ROMs are still pretty pretty useful these days.
Yeah.
The problem with this is like we're talking about attacking an air-gapped machine with a physical medium, and the kind of attacks that you're going to see against that level of air gap, it's not going to be you can put it against virus total and you're not going to get any results because nobody's going to that effort to get to that machine unless they've got a weapon ready to go. Like that's
Yep.
a very different playing field than scanning the internet with mass scan looking for open ports. So
Yeah, and
I'd agree.
also best practices are just best practices, right? They're not things that necessarily happen in real life.
Yeah. The only reason I brought up air gap, by the way, is just because that is kind of the worst case scenario. Largely, these machines have probably been on the internet for years and years and years, and just there's been no consequence until now.
yeah, that's definitely these crypto miners and like things that are using it to like drop garbageware. They're definitely spray and pray type stuff, the same type of thing you see with every variant of Mirai, Qbot and whatever. They're not targeted attacks like you would see on more ICS stuff is a very different playing field.
Yeah, the best case scenario is you get so many miners on your box that no one makes any money because they're all stepping over each other.
You need that much compute power, but there's
Is that a good defense strategy? Maybe.
There's
Very much so. I endorse it.
In those SCADA devices, so maybe make use of them instead of the CPU. But I mean,
It's scary times though. Everything's held together by just a string. One little string.
Cool. So donor drive, Dan, is the next thing that came up. Did you?
Yeah, I saw that, and
a little bit about that.
yeah, I saw that they had tweeted out that they were being DDoSed. I think it turned out by the time I was all ragey about it, the DDoSes were pretty much over and all that. But hospitals and donation places to me are kind of two things that, unless you are a nation state, stay the fuck away from them. Like, there's two things that I think it's pretty easy to make a logical decision to stay away from, and hospitals where people's lives at risk, and donation drives where people's lives are generally also at risk. Just stay away from them. Cut it out. Just fucking stop.
I think a lot of people
simple.
have their moral codes, right? So like black hats will say, "Oh, I don't give a fuck if someone dies. I'm stealing money." But are you really making money by attacking? Like, what's the cost of a life to those kind of people?
I think a lot of I get what you're saying, and I've heard a lot from the people that wear the blacker hats say, well, my morals are flexible, that's why I'm successful. And first of all, chances are they're probably not actually all that successful, but second of all, they're probably lying about being that morally flexible in the first place too. I think people deep down know right from wrong. Whether they want to suppress that emotion, okay, maybe they're able to suppress it more than others. But I think it takes a truly messed up person to think it's okay to ransom an ICU unit somewhere where you're in control of systems that are life and death. I don't think there's a lot of lone wolves. I don't think there's a lot of hacking crews that are down for that.
Right. But I think
I do think there's a lot of nation states though that are very easily way more corrupt and willing to do that kind of shit.
Also, it's worth
Definitely.
noting that it was on the Extra Life charity donation day that all this happened, which makes it a whole extra
Oh.
level of fucked up.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's
Well,
November 1st. Tomorrow is Extra Life for Kids game day. We're raising
so
funds while playing games for the kids. And the next day it was DDoS. DDoS City.
interesting. I didn't hear that, and I didn't click with me. I did see somebody recommend, hey, have they been collecting donations for Hong Kong? Which, to me, instantly I was like, oh, that absolutely would make sense. And China is notorious for either BGP hijacking or doing traditional bandwidth floods. So I've seen it happen. I wouldn't doubt that they do that kind of thing, but at the same time, if it was after something that a lot of people on Twitch streams or a lot of people with social clout have been promoting, that's also definitely possibly a skid thing. And so,
I
who
think
did it?
with their spray and pray payloads, like before, like building botnets and that kind of thing, they're often like mass scanning huge cider blocks that they don't know what's on them anyway. And I think there's a lot of like accidental infection, and then they're just like, oh, I ransomed something or like I DDoS something. But with this specific case, it was pretty targeted.
Yeah. It seemed
And
like they reached
very
out
low
to them and
effort.
there was contact, right?
Yeah, it was very, very low effort to do like bandwidth flooding. Like it doesn't, and a lot of people are like, oh, I have a botnet that does this much throughput or whatever. Like, okay, go buy a couple of 10 gigabit links with actual, of actual boxes, and you've got more than like that whole botnet by 100.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Same. I don't know if it's looking through the show notes. I don't see it. But a quick add on to that would be what is it? Emerald Onion or Onion Emerald? I forget the name, how it goes, but they were also DDoSed recently with some pretty high amount. I think it was 100 gigs per IP address in a full 24, and that turns out to be a lot of bandwidth if you add it all up.
like
And it's not
Zeus,
tip. Sorry,
that doesn't sound like a typical bot. Like that's not some
that's right.
kids like D-Link router botnet.
Yeah, it's they're load balancing the DDoS.
Yeah, right, and that's not common, right? That's not common with skids. That's not common with any DDoS I've actually been experienced with. I'm sure we could get some of our DDoS mitigation guys on to talk a little more about that specific one because it sounded really interesting. Sadly, Emerald has this policy of not doing any kind of forensics or telemetry, and so I asked him, "Hey, do you have PCAPs that the internet could look at?" Because I guarantee there's people with access to flow data that could probably actually narrow down where this traffic's coming from, but they sadly did not have that kind of stuff. Notable though, I figured I'd toss that in there. Two notable DDoSes in the past week.
Yeah, there was also a interesting bit that I stumbled on. It was talking about how the U.S. government was DDoSing darknet markets in order to drive traffic to their honeypots darknet markets, which is pretty wild to read about.
Yeah. So I had a little back and forth with Dark.Val, who's probably been the one site that you could actually go to during all these DDoS attacks and find the newest link to get to the real sites. And I couldn't help but wonder out loud, if there were a lot of scamming links that were being passed around during that time, and it is a good opportunity for actual scammers to flood fake links and scam people. But at the same time, if you think about how the DEA and other anti-drug organizations work, seizing drug funds or seizing funds that are directed towards drugs isn't a thing that they care about. That's fair game for them. And building a case against users where you can control the wallet that they're sending money to and the wallet that's generated and all that. It doesn't matter how much tumbling you do, it doesn't matter what you do. They have now a case from top to bottom that they can put in front of a jury, put in front of a judge, and say, we don't care how much obfuscation happened in the middle. We controlled the beginning and the end of this transaction. This person's guilty. And so uh, it's an interesting thought exercise to think maybe the scams weren't just happenstance. Maybe the scams weren't actually scams.
I mean, it's one thing to cause a disruption, but then to use that disruption to funnel your traffic into the controlled endpoints, just really layers that on. And somebody who has like the ability and the want to do such a thing, they're gonna do it.
Pretty devious.
Pretty devious.
I'll see.
Yeah, I think if you are out there in darknet land purchasing or whatever, you already have accepted a level of risk, and again, don't be surprised. Like, oh, but everyone's doing it. Like, yeah, well, maybe everyone's getting wrecked.
Yeah, either that or everyone else is government.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so the best method is assume that's true. Never sign for anything that you order, legal or not, and assume the worst, and you'll generally be okay.
Own, that's like the number one rule, anyway.
Oh yeah, totally. PGP, everything. Like, don't chance it.
It's always funny when you see a story of the feds raiding each other because they didn't know the other was running an operation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Police, put down the weapon. Also, police.
Bill, is that you down in cubicle three away from me? Put down the mouse. Or
drop your weapon. No, you drop your weapon.
Is this like the Spider-Man meme where Spider-Man is pointing at Spider-Man?
Absolutely is.
So, on the note of spiders and webs, let's get on to this next one, which is WhatsApp suing Israel's NSO. Lol, good luck. For breaching around 1,400 users, and surprise, diplomats, political dissidents, journalists, and senior government officials being the targets. A lot of people.
Wouldn't it be cool if NSO got wrecked?
Yeah.
Oh, did I say that out loud? Oh shit! I thought my mic was off.
I mean, yeah, you can try, but they're in a different country.
Exactly. Do those laws apply here?
I don't know. I think they can make up their own rules.
Yeah, I agree.
My favorite part is that NSO's like, no, we're just a technology company.
Yeah.
Cool.
We didn't do anything wrong. We're just a technology company. We don't do that.
Works for Facebook.
Cool story.
Hey.
What do you guys think about the no click, the no interaction details of this specific one, though? I mean, it required no interaction, and I believe it said the victims had no indication whatsoever that the implant was successful.
I think that's worth a whole lot of money, and somebody paid somebody else a shitload for it, and they used it accordingly. No surprise.
Yeah.
What do you think it would take to get in the supply chain of that supply?
I mean, I don't want to speculate on that.
Are we painting targets on ourselves a little too much with this combo? Sorry.
I don't know. It's one of those insane places that, you know, I feel like it's not one of those places you can even try to get to almost.
I don't know.
It's one of those things.
If you had something worth selling, and you knew of a way to sell it, and it's going to be vigorously, whatever the word. I'm really tired.
All
It's going to be checked. What you're selling is not going. They're not going to buy some reverse shell show notes from ThugCrowd.
It's not like the Matrix where a bunch of your goth friends show up and they just give you cash and you hand them a fucking floppy drive.
Yeah. They actually skateboard past and get into limos. Do the swap.
Oh yeah, there was that meme recently.
But I kind of often think of like the startup days, right, where you could have some amazing innovation, right, and it could be awesome, but without marketing and sales driving that as a signal that's meaningful, right, it wouldn't result in anything. So that where that translates for me in some of this is just wondering if there are insanely technically talented individuals who don't have an in to sell, right? Like, who do you trust? Who do you've got something so valuable, like, how do you, and you're just some unknown, do you just start knocking on doors and hope that you don't get in trouble? I mean, what does that look like?
You reply to about 3 or 4 companies on Twitter that openly are buying them. I won't name them because that's definitely probably over the line.
But I'm just thinking,
lawyer
like,
probably would not be happy with that.
Do you?
One of them blocked me on Twitter.
Yeah,
it's more just a thought experiment as far as like where do you start trusting, right? You got to start trusting somewhere, or you got to at least start a conversation enough to trust. And so I always kind of like to just dabble in that.
I think if you can demonstrate that you're able to do a 0-click successfully and repeatably, the companies aren't gonna care exactly that much. They're definitely gonna like revet it through their experts, but I think there's some clever enough people out there that could do some interesting things to make it fingerprintable. And
yeah, I mean, everybody has their style of shellcode and other things like that. That you can pick up on certain programmers or whatever, but in the ways of finding someone, like there are some known trustworthy sources that are trustworthy based on where you live, who you know, and other things like that. So if you live in the United States and you're a US citizen and you're not a felon, you're more there's certain characteristics about you that are probably more likely to be in your favor with a certain company as opposed to selling it to into the Southeast Asian market, for example.
or being from .ir.
Yeah, maybe you have to write it or like in a labor camp. I don't know. That's speculation.
Yeah.
But
agreed.
Yeah, it's if you're in the game of writing 0 clicks for WhatsApp, you've made a few friends already, I think. And you're
they've also treated you very well financially and otherwise. So you may not want to. That may be a good example of where flexible morals are kind of in the game, because you don't actually know for sure where your work is being deployed. They may say it's for the greater good, and you may be able to believe that after you get paid $2 million and never think of it again.
Or you might not care. I mean,
or you might not care.
Some people are just in it to get paid, and it's if whoever's paying it, as long as it's legal and you're not going to go to prison for it, then sure, fine. And I doubt that any of these organizations are saying, you're the shell code that you're writing is
we're going to use it on dissidents. Yeah, they're not going to tell you that.
Right? It's it's always anti-terrorism, right?
Yep.
if you're gonna deal with an arms dealer, like a cyber arms dealer, like you should realize that you're selling cyber weapons.
Well,
Everybody-
yeah, and one other cautionary thing I'd add to that is if you're dealing with a cyber arms dealer, that might not be the only kind of arms that you're dealing with.
Yeah, who knows? That's all speculation.
Be careful.
So moving on. This one is cool as fuck. And MG was looking at this, and I'm surprised. Dan, you mentioned you were surprised. Everybody's surprised MG didn't do it already. Lol. So using lasers to sonically control microphone smart devices, Series, Google Homes, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, from a distance. So firing a laser directly at a device and having it interpreted as audio, which is cool.
Super interesting stuff.
Yeah,
I
this is
haven't
some
been able to
real
read-
galaxy brain shit.
I haven't been able to read the text on it. So if one of you has like a wrap up of how it works, is it basically just the exact opposite of those lasers we've all heard of that can pick up sound from windows and other things, or how does it actually work?
I guess it's interchangeable. Well, I mean, so those are based on the reflection of the laser, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is just sending the waveform, which they show on an oscilloscope. For a very like, I mean, I'm not a physicist. I'm not going to pretend. I look at oscilloscopes and go like, oh yeah, that's a digital. That's a square, like that one. So yeah, like there's a little bit of a write up on it, but I think like the actual how this works exactly is you're gonna have to read quite a bit and understand
Yeah,
it a bit more.
I've looked at it a decent amount. I'm gonna guess it's using harmonics at a certain point because laser is pretty high up there on the spectrum. Like, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, take a look at spectrum and how it works. Sound is relatively low, and light is higher, and lasers and ultrasound and all that stuff gets higher and higher and higher up the stream of spectrum. And it appears like they're using lasers to activate voice commands. I don't know if I'm assuming they're using some kind of harmonic mixed with a carrier signal.
Yeah, because it's not going to be audible. The laser.
Might want
It's
to give
not-
it another minute though, because ads started re-rolling because it restreamed.
Nice.
Got
I love
the
that.
ads.
There we go.
Ads are my
I'm past
favorite.
the ads. Yeah, I guess I'll just kind of repeat what I was saying. We can move on. It looks like it's exploiting things called MEMS microphones, micro electromechanical systems microphones. However, they're
Yeah.
working. That seems to be the specific type of microphone that is vulnerable. So it's not like they can shine a microphone that, or they can shine a
Any
laser to
microphone.
any microphone. It's specific types.
Yeah.
Government backdoor microphones.
Yes. Although
No.
Think
honestly,
about
I
like
would.
what microphone actually affected by light.
Yeah.
Sorry. What was that, Pike?
I'm just saying, just like think of how a microphone's made and how can you have something that vibrates or actually get your vibrations be affected by light.
Yeah, I mean it. I know it definitely has something to do with the clocks. That's all I know.
Bucks.
Yeah, the clocks that are used to run the drive of the audio input. So
Right. Yeah.
Is
I can't dive into the extreme technical of it plainly because I just don't know how it fully works yet. But I do know this particular tech seems to be based on certain types of microphones, and that's not to say there's not some other stuff out there that can work on every microphone, because I'm sure there is.
But there's also those hat things like people made. They're on like 3D printed sites where you put it's like a cone, like the cone of silence that goes over Google Homes and stuff, and then there's a separate microphone with a different command word, and then it uses like some sort of like reverb to basically feed
cool.
white noise to the device. I can't remember what they
Yeah.
call it.
It also reminds me of there was some research done by some Chinese researchers about like kind of the same thing, but they're using basically whatchamacallums, like the motion detectors on the like Oculus, right? Like the tilt sensors, and also attacking those with other similar methods of
like with lasers and focused beams and stuff.
Yeah, it's either lasers or maybe it was sound.
Oh, that's
I don't
super cool.
remember. But yeah, I just remember that it just reminded me that they were attacking those and like these like skateboards with these tilt sensors like segways, that kind of thing,
That's so
right?
funny.
But it's like being able to it's like the same sort of weird, unexpected
Yeah.
being able to interfere.
That's so mean though. Imagine just rocking somebody's skateboard as if they leaned fully left and they're just going straight.
Just getting rocked. Yeah.
Yup.
Catch you later, ankle. Felt the pain. It's like Peter Griffin, like
my ski.
So on to the
last story, yeah.
Last story. Like, I just want to throw this one in because I want to make a point. We got actually cited in this, so we've been citing Bleeping Computer for some time. They usually have some articles we like, and they cited one of our tweets about Discord. For anyone who doesn't know, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we found while we were on Discord when we had our chat platform there. That I mean, like it's a lot of stuff. So I'm not going to even start going over everything from like crashing rent, like unexpected exceptions being thrown for like image files and different file formats.
Emoji overflow.
They fixed it all though, obviously, right?
No. But in this case, some of the things are like being used to host C2s, like for some reason, Skids decide that Discord is a good place to host a C2. Some infrastructure they don't control. Uploading samples in not samples, uploading their files in a DM and then using the CDN link, which is unauthenticated, to then deliver their stuff. And then just modifying the client and bypassing client-side protections. Like there's a lot of different stuff that happened. But the main reason I wanted to throw this in here is that after we spent our time on Discord, we left Discord. So if everyone can stop asking what the Discord link is, and if they can have one, that'd be fantastic. There isn't one. So
wink.
It's just extra secret now.
Who said wait?
Wink.
Wink.
We don't have Discord. Wink.
Wait, what? We're not on Discord?
We do have a separate chat though, which our challenge is now closed for anyone who's doing that. If you didn't see the solution, it was pretty cool. It was a subtitle file uploaded to a YouTube video, which had a base64 encoded file out of the time frame of the video. So you had to look at the subtitle file itself, or you had to notice subtitles were on, have a look at the subtitle file itself, extract the base64, a couple more steps that were not too involved, and that bagged you entry. So the difficulty was quite low, but it was a different kind of difficulty where people had to use their internet spidey senses. And yeah,
I like that. It'd be interesting if people started maybe screen capping their adventure on solving some of these whenever we do them. Not so that they can stream them live or anything like that, but after the challenge is over, It'd be interesting to see how some people have been approaching it, whether you're successful or not in the end. That might be cool stuff to throw up on the internet afterwards.
Yeah, there was someone who solved one of the challenges in Excel. It's just mind blowing.
Yeah, that was good. That was shout out Harmony. That was lit. And that just goes to show that you don't need to be a master programmer to do it. It was done with Excel macros, and that was pretty well. Actually, Excel formulas, which was pretty cool. So on that, let's have a break for 10 minutes. So we'll be back at
go pee for 10 minutes.
Yeah, just
all 10 minutes.
We'll do a whole
don't
stop.
And
very slow.
Yeah, we will return.
Burb.
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 The warlord, the cult leader, backed by a small army of highly trained killers and villains. We beat the innocent guerrilla war, shoot them up, sit behind trees and squeeze. The uniforms, army fatigues. The warlord with a scary squad, Genghis Khan, military guard, Mr. Rocket Launcher with a heavy arm. Terrorist to some people, he's a freedom fighter. To some a war criminal, to others the messiah. A symbol of hope addressed in a cloak of hate. Baby Hitler with a poker face and a cobra's taste. Conquer all my enemies, heads on top of spikes around my door. My sword sheath is the mouth of a whore. Brain of Einstein, beard like Osama. Shoot a 747 out the sky with the llama. Who's crucified, who dies, who survives, who's the warlord? Right up on the moped, shoot him in the eye.
Warlord, get on your knees and pay homage. A warlord, kill them all, leave no survivors. It's the warlord, get on your knees and kiss the ring. It's the warlord, emperor, king of all kings. Warlord, get on your knees and pay homage. A warlord, kill them all, leave no survivors. It's the warlord, get on your knees and kiss the ring. It's the warlord, emperor, king of all kings.
I rise to power, 5-star General Eisenhower. He'd rather face death as a hero than die as a coward. Alexander Hannibal, Caesar, Sun Tzu. Shooters who put away their guns and kill you with kung fu. Strategy applied, gladiator streets in my heat supplies. Soldiers of fortune increase for high, kidnapped journalists. Black sites where midnight is permanent. Professionally contracted murder inc. The warlord with the Uzi and the sword off. Or have your fucking feet sawed off to watch you crawl off. ISIS, the CIA, Kumbaya. I don't give a fuck who I spray, I've already been paid. Became a killer age 13. I remember the first time, I can still hear their screams. Fascinated by power drills and hollow shells, and even more by how having power feels.
Warlord, get on your knees and pay homage. A warlord, kill them all, leave no survivors. It's the warlord, get on your knees and kiss the ring. It's the warlord, emperor, king of all kings. Warlord, get on your knees and pay homage. A warlord, kill them all, leave no survivors. It's the warlord, get on your knees and kiss the ring. It's the warlord, emperor, king of all kings. It's the warlord.
Who the fuck told you was nice, homie? Fuck out of here. Your shit is basura. Trash. Homie, you got shot. You was never a shooter. Never. I'm in the mirror, narcissist, Lex Luger. In my 94 rugby, looking like Grand Pooba. Wifey like Mary J with the bucket though. I wake up every morning like fuck it though. Bitch, you ain't Beyonce, and your homegirls don't really fuck with you. You out here like Latoya Luckett, ho. Bum rappers wanna twist up faces. I'll collapse their cheekbone and I'll punch through braces. All that lean got you waking up dope sick. Go to rehab, I'll hit your girl with the dope dick. I'm a G though, niggas be frontin'. Not me though. These bars will knock the confidence out of your ego. Won't feature me cause they scared of the goon. And when I freestyle, I knock the fucking air out the room. Boom. Your SoundCloud is garbage. One follower. Your mixtape is garbage. Pass that, let me break up this weird. Your Instagram is garbage. Delete that. The link in your bio is garbage. Fuck out. Everybody you rhyme with is garbage. Garbage. Nigga, your whole block is garbage. And pussy. 9 on me, nigga, give up your wallet. Ain't no conspiracy against you. All your shit is just garbage.
done yet. UDP amplified like the MOSFET. I be gunning all night, take 'em down, big jet. Bitch, who the fuck is you? I know I asked before, I still don't have a fucking clue. You be up all night, trying to sniffing glue. I be gripping all these packets for the loot. Packets with the loot, got my cars on lockdown. FMG with shoot bullets going through walls now. I can fucking lose, I can never down clock now. I can fucking snooze, looking for the next cash cow. FMG with shoot bullets going through walls now. I can fucking lose, I can never down clock now. I can fucking snooze, looking for the next cash cow. You watch my back, I watch my front now. You watch my back, I watch my front now. Dead PTSD from the gun sounds. Never had desire for a gold crown, and I never ever caught less than a fucking ounce. Why do you try to engineer me? Reverse the script and let a hype beast fear me.
Why do you try to engineer me? Reverse. Why do you try to engineer me?
Bullets going through walls now. I can fucking lose, I can never down clock now.
I can fucking lose, I can never down clock now. I can fucking snooze, looking for the next cash now.
Why do you try to engineer me? Don't waste my time, don't waste my time. Like, why do you try to engineer me? Reverse the script and let a hype beast fear me. I grow tired of internet chat rooms, fake ass hackers top hard while my packs move. Don't waste my time like that, dude. Keep a couple nines, cause I'm ready for the jack move. Real life, no cap. When I hit the corner store, no, I gotta stay strapped. When I'm on the Onion Network, no, I gotta flip a pack. I can change who I am, and that ain't no going back. Real, recognize, real, that's why you find me in the trap. I'ma up the fucking stick so you won't stab me in the back. Stay away from skinnies, really don't know how to act. We were out there making money, you were busy spamming chats. Fuck the police, fuck the motherfucking law. It ain't about my fucking ego, I'ma give it to you raw. They don't wanna evolve, they just wanna see you fall. I'ma spam them fucking emos, fuck a bitch till I'm raw. It's a combo, and I won't slow down till your whole crew pay ya. I'll be in your boxes, you be thinking you a player. I'll be in the trenches putting shots in the haters. Suicidal thoughts got me playing Team Slayer. Playing Sony Glock Station, ordering some dope that they claim be from the Haitians. I don't give a fuck long as money they keep paying. I don't fuck with sluts, they be knowing what my name is. Trick hoe, you a fucking snitch, let me find out. Talking to them pigs, I'ma come down, I'ma show out. Disrespect the code, you ain't never had no clout. I'ma let it snow, never know about a damn drought. Button in your subnet, but the motherfucking word out. Packets flying every which way, the IP route. You know 86, but that's the only thing you know about. I be with them killers steady, let them birds fly south. Real life, no cap. When I hit the corner store, no, I gotta stay strapped. Real life, no cap. When I hit the corner store, no, I gotta stay strapped. When I'm on the Onion Network, no, I gotta flip a pack. I can change who I am, and that ain't no going back. Real, recognize, real, that's why you find me in the trap. I'ma up the fucking stick so you won't stab me in the back.
Alrighty, and
What's
we're
up?
back. So we're gonna talk
We're
about
back.
guests now. Jared, welcome.
Hey,
So let's start off before we get into the technical stuff. Let's start off with you if you just want to introduce yourself and any way you'd like.
sure. My name is JF0LKINS. I've done a lot of stuff over the years. Is kind of how I explain it to people, and I just encourage folks that they can do stuff too, hacking or defense or whatever they want to do. Startup-y stuff, and yeah, right now I help with nonprofit called OPSEC-EDU. I also do some open source projects that we'll talk about here tonight.
Very cool.
Hell yeah.
So you put like, so as a B-sides, you used outside as your demigod POC. You prayed to them.
Yeah, so I can explain that real quick. So if you go to, I created this project called Kushtaka, and it's kushtaka.org. I named it after, there's a tribe in the Pacific Northwest, the Tinglet tribe. They've got a legend about an otter that shapeshifts, right? And it would lure you in and then steal your soul. And so I thought for like a canary project, a honey project, it would be kind of cool to riff off of that. And so one of the things that I'm passionate about is trying to help folks who are underfunded, under-resourced, understand the systems in which they operate. And a lot of times that's people systems. They know the right thing to do. They know that they need patch management. They know that they need to understand what the resources are at, but they can't, right? There's only one of them, and there's just no money. So a lot of times I try to plug into them and figure out how I can help. And Kushtaka is kind of born out of that, as far as when I was looking if I could continue to develop different exploits to try to bring awareness to kind of the plight of some of these organizations, including mine. I was finding that wasn't very successful. I was finding that I could develop pretty standard attacks, and it wasn't really helping. It was helping with some large, billion-dollar mega corporations, but it's a tough conversation to have, as every security person knows. And so with Kushtaka, I was thinking, well, here's something that's fairly simple, and if I can just distill it and make it as simple as possible, which is actually incredibly hard to do, could I get this on premise for them? If I make it look sexy and hot, would their manager be like, hey, if I show this to my boss, maybe I'll get a raise. So let me have this engineer actually implement this. And so the engineer's happy because it's not a blinky light. It's something that is, there's a lot of research behind over 20 or 30 years of research there that can help. But the critical thing is just the simplicity, the ideas behind that. And so what I did with ThugCrowd.com is, on stage, I was introducing this talk, and it went really well. I was really pleased. But I just I registered ThugCrowd.org, which I think is still up. And with Kushtaka, you can just point the aggregator, the dashboard, at a website, and it'll make a soft clone of it with all the assets. It's not a proxy. I've got a bunch of technical decisions behind that. And then so on the stage, I made a clone, had my A record and my DNS stuff pointed to ThugCrowd.org. And now every time people go to that site, I get an alert. And the ideal would be if you go to, say, a Palo Alto, the analogy I was giving on stage was take this another level and go to a Palo Alto portal, right? Which is, vpn.example.com, right? Or thugcrowd.com. If you clone that and then put that on your internal network and make it so that nobody really knows about it, especially your staff, right? When attackers start to probe, we've seen other tools like this, but when an attacker probes it and starts to scan it, when they interact with it, it'll alert you, and that's a high value signal versus something like a seam. So that's kind of a deep dive into it, but there's kind of the thought and the genesis, and the demo gods being praised for having me not suck on stage.
Hell yeah! I mean, that's always a bonus. But I guess so you put a lot of work into that. Obviously, to get that to that point. So yeah, kushtaka.org is in the chat. We probably should have put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like,
and it's still,
in a way, it provides
go ahead.
Almost like a canary like service.
So yeah, well, it's so if you think of, like, I think the popular one right now is Thinkst, right? Canary.tools or whatever. And I really like those guys, but a lot of my peers, we can't afford that. And I want to support them. Like part of who I am, that I don't always know if I fit in, but I do like to help people, and it's a really weird trait to have hacking skills, but seemingly to want to legitimately help people who are underserved. But they can't afford that canary tool stuff. So if I package this up with Go into one binary, and I say, okay, instead of like, forcing you to install SQL, which, doesn't seem like much to me or you, but to many people, it is. So I chose a key value store called Bolt. It's really well known. I know that my buddy Ben wrote it. I've been using it for years on different projects. Heroku's got like terabytes, I believe, of data in it. But this makes it so that this binary, I can ship it to Windows, right? Cross compile it to Windows, ARM, OS X, or obviously Linux is what I develop on. And it's pretty seamless, as well as the nice property of Go, which I think still folks don't truly grok. Like, the power of it is, right, the dynamic libraries, that's not a thing in Go, right? It's that static compilation, which makes it reproducible, which means that as somebody like myself with like 20 years doing this crap, I hate debugging that stuff. So it's just that reproducible build is so helpful.
It's very cool.
Oh yeah. Cool. So some other stuff you want to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Yeah. So that the nonprofit OPSEC EDU, I got involved in that. I founded that with some friends when, I don't know, it seems like maybe everybody has a story like this. I ran into some serious vulnerabilities with a piece of software that's pretty critical to that type of infrastructure, to K-12 and education, that type of infrastructure. And when I disclosed it, I disclosed things in goodwill and just like, hey, this is like, a lot of times if I can have an idea what the source code looks like or even get an inkling, I'll write a quick patch. That's something just to help out. And they kind of took it and they said, oh, we already know about this, right? And they said there's a patch on their portal. And when I looked and I actually ran file against the PDF and stuff, I could see like it was sitting out there for like 18 months and they had never told anybody. And so this is not, as we know, this is not uncommon. It's just real. It's just kind of pathetic. But and so a bunch of friends and I got together and we decided that I'd keep auditing this software. And every time I went back and just audited it again, session replay or SQL injection or DOS or RCE or whatever it was that I was finding, I kind of just batched these vulnerabilities and approached this corporation. And eventually, through a long process, they started to understand. But my system, like I spoke about earlier, if you attack, if you're trying to change a system, my core belief is like, you've got to reach the people inside. And maybe it sounds too idealistic to some, but you have to approach the people. And it wasn't until, I didn't go on Twitter, I didn't blast them, I didn't shame them. I know this is super weird. I know people might hate me for it or I disagree with me avidly, but like I went in and just every time I said, no, this is still messed up. Let me show you. And it took about 9 months of that before it was successful. And a lot of community effort where people were standing up kind of saying in unison, this is the patch we need, and this is the information, and we need this CVSS score and all this stuff. So I know it sounds weird because some people might think that this stuff's all figured out, but I can tell you it's really not. So yeah, that's kind of the intro to that project. And I can kind of talk about how we've helped kids and a couple other things if you like.
Yeah,
sure, definitely.
So yeah, we did this thing called Bring Your Ethical Hacker. There's a huge stigma in education, right? You say the word hacker, most, unfortunately, even CISOs, right? And I'm not speaking ill of anybody who's my peer who's listening to this, but a lot of those folks rise through the ranks in a different way, right? They rise through maybe a more salesy way or more managerial way, and the technical knowledge to actually do these things, isn't on their agenda, isn't on their to-do list. So they hear the word hacker, and there's a lot of fear. And I can say that when we did this ethical hack thing, where we had people all over the world get involved to bring classroom students in. And then what was powerful about this is that through virtual sessions, kids could hear from people in the information security community. But on top of that, those teachers could go back to their admins. The admins could go back to their superintendents and be like, whoa, we let these hackers in and they didn't destroy us, right? Like they didn't hurt us. They were trying to help, and our kids loved it and our teachers loved it. And we want
cannot
more.
imagine how you managed to get away with that. I mean, it's like, just imagine I'm walking into a classroom, like virtually, right? They put me like a hacker up on a screen to interact with their like 14-year-olds who totally knew I was a hacker and were asking me how to hack stuff. And the fact that a teacher would actually allow that to happen at all was like a pretty major career risk on their part. But it was awesome. The kids had great questions. They were, they weren't like, I assumed that they'd waste my time. and they had a lot for me to think about. So it was, super fun participating in this. I hope that we get to do it again. We got some pretty great feedback, and I think that was pretty much the case with everybody you brought in, right, Jared?
Absolutely. I think their only issues were technical, but I mean, we spoke with kids as far as Australia, and that was a really powerful moment. I think when you step outside of yourself and you see kids, or another powerful moment was David. Somebody asked for an ESL classroom, right? English second language, and so my buddy David and I, David speaks Spanish. We got to do that classroom, and like these kids, if you kind of see them, right, they're checked out, right? Their heads are on a desk. They're in their own little bubble. David was kind of explaining it to me where I think these kids are in the middle of Virginia, right? And they don't speak English. And so he was just saying how lonely culturally that would be. And we start talking, and I've got some pretty good stories over the years that are high risk, high reward stories to engage them. And all of a sudden you start to see them pull their heads off their desk. They start listening to you. They start engaging with you. They start asking questions. So yeah, it was amazing. I couldn't have asked for something to go better.
Yeah. I mean, the kids were asking me like, how do I stop jerks from DDoSing me off my game? And it's like, so, like 14-year-olds know what DDoS is. And, it's kind of cool because the same thing is going on with them as was going on with me when I was on IRC as a kid. So it's like, same shit, different game. Yeah, there's
really big thing,
there's something that's a little bit different, which is that they don't have to break the law to be able to learn any technology they want, and that's what I think is so cool now. If you have kids that are intrinsically motivated and they want to learn how to do things, you can communicate with anybody in the world for free. You can basically get computers for almost free, fish them out of any dumpster. You can, you have access to all of the cloud computing capacity that a free AWS account can give you, which is essentially a supercomputer. And you don't need to break the law for any of that, which is just completely amazing compared to how we were coming up.
If you actually have a EDU address, which talking about education, in Australia and New Zealand, there is an organization called Nectar where you can get free compute time on supercomputer clusters. So you can get like a couple of cores and some RAM with just your EDU account. Sign up, log into your.
Who's talking? Who's this?
This is Judge Dredd.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a teacher I'd like to, just briefly connect you with, but she's in Australia, and that would mean a lot to her.
Yeah. So there's it's basically a big distributed thing that's set up by a lot of different universities, and they'll each host their own part, and then it's a federated logon for EDU. And that's in New Zealand.
Huh. That's awesome.
So that's one way to get
some free Azure compute time too with an EDU address.
Yeah, I mean, Azure gives away free compute time. You can get free compute time from Amazon with a developer account. I think they give you $100 a month for free. Obviously, there's plenty of ways to get compute time, but almost anybody can get a computer now. And in fact, a lot of school districts give them to kids. So I think that's, the ability to communicate with pretty much anybody in the world instantly for free. That's something we didn't have. Access to powerful computers is something that we didn't have. And anybody who's intrinsically motivated now and really wants to learn how to be a hacker can, and they don't have to go to jail to do it.
That's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
I think everybody in this room has a story of, I was in high school and I accidentally accessed something, and then I probably got in trouble. Like that's the same story that you hear from anyone who's around the 30 plus.
Yeah, I was at B-Sides PDX, and I attended this kid's talk. He was awesome. He's building this project Onioner. He's trying to a distributed secure thing on top of Tor, I guess is the best way I can put it right now. But you can Google it, Onioner. But yeah, his story was like, why I wanted this secure thing, this privacy thing, was I was trying to get around my school's proxy, right? That's a real thing that kids do. And obviously, being in education, I don't advocate for that. I need to not do that, right? I need to help students understand the risks. I think the most fearful I get for kids, because I've seen kids get wadded up in the system, right? If you're pushing on people, you can affect people. If you're pushing on systems, you're going to really fail. Is that belief again? And so I've seen kids get really wadded up in that stuff that doesn't get talked about sometimes. Not in my district, but you see it other places. And there's just different philosophies. And so when I was at B-Sides PDX, there was a kid who knew the law. This kid was just repeating the law to me, and all these laws that he felt protected him. And I was like, yeah, but have you ever personally been sued? And he kind of blinked at me, and I'm like, man, I have. Like, I won't go into it, but I have. And that is stressful as all get out. You've not suffered until you've been sued. And
that put us out of business. It's important for people to understand the especially kids, the law versus the actual damage you're going to do to your life.
Yeah. I mean, there's an investment. So like you might be clear cut innocent of a crime, for example. Like, there's a law that specifically allows something to happen, but there's also a criminal complaint made, but you still need to go through the process. And unless somebody I haven't done that, and I hope that I never have to do that.
I've never. So my stuff was all personal, right? Bad contractor tried to steal money from me, had to go to court, right? It's a bad business deal essentially. But I can tell you, like, the stress on my spouse, my kids, man, that ain't worth it, dude. Like, it is horrible.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And stepping foot in any sort of courtroom is, man, I don't even like filling out paperwork. I have to. So yeah, let's compound that. So working with like educating kids, I guess, on hacking. Like, I guess it's become very within gaming culture. Gaming has obviously become mainstream for the kids. I probably sound like a boomer. But
you sound like a teenager.
every kid is like Fortnite, right? Like, they're playing Xbox or whatever, or Minecraft or Roblox or whatever it is.
Untitled Goose Game.
That game rules, by the way. But it definitely it comes in then, like, people start get on Twitch, like we're on Twitch right now, and somebody gets DDoSed, and somebody gets doxxed, and somebody accidentally streams typing their password in the wrong place. And these aren't always sophisticated hacks, but they're things that kids are coming across. And there's definitely a culture where people start to think that doxing or DDoSing is normal, and that and having a way to understand what it actually is and how to prevent it is excellent education.
Yeah, I mean, like, the way I pitch it to some folks, it's, you got to be in the right culture, right? But if we're not going to teach our kids about sex or whatever, I mean, then they're going to mess up all the time, and it's going to suck. And so we take the time to do that. And yet these very technical kids, like, there's brilliant kids who just routinely knock me out of the park, just what they come up with. And yet we're not having critical conversations. And I this is kind of born out of some of that concern that you're talking about.
Cool. So is it still ongoing?
So we just did it in October. I'm trying to tie it in. I learned a bunch, right? Was trying to get it to the beginning of the U.S. school year, so that teachers need to integrate that into their curriculum planning for the semester, type of deal, right? And so we were kind of late to the party. Had a lot of feedback, or had a lot of involvement, even despite that. But next year we do this. I'd like to get everybody on board in July, launch it in August, and get everything kind of dialed in September for October, versus kind of scrambling like I was doing.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely a timeline. That's definitely something to aim for. There's a lot of stuff, I imagine, goes into the preparation, and the convincing the teachers, I guess, is the other thing. Convincing people that, because even teachers, they might, now that they're adults, they're still not, like, most people aren't really aware of the kind of things that people in InfoSec see quite frequently.
Not at all. And yeah, I mean, this phase, it's kind of funny. Community building, right? Again, pushing on people to impact systems, right? Don't attack the system, help the people. This whole piece was like very trust building, right? So my fear was like, maybe the first session goes horrible. Well, man, what happens then, right? Or maybe some kid starts DDoSing the network right when when Robert's talking, right? Okay, what happens then, right? There's all those fears that you have when you take a risk and you try to step up and help somebody, but they are meaningful things, and so I think it's okay to push. Like I'm willing to push to help, but yeah, it was a whole trust building phase for sure this year.
Well, I think it was super awesome though. It's the kids had really great questions. The freshmen had very different questions than the juniors and seniors did. So you can see how like as they're learning more, the sophistication of their questions changes. And overall, I think with the freshmen, we kind of missed the mark. We didn't have a really good plan going in for like how to be completely age appropriate. So we were like kind of way past where they are in planning a career. So it would have been a little bit better to have a career discussion more for like, the juniors and seniors and like more about like, how to use a VPN to get around a DDoSing jerk for games, like for the younger students. But, that's we just learn as we go, right? And for our first effort, I was super happy with it. Nobody fell asleep. I figured the worst thing that could happen is like they'd all get up and leave, or they'd all fall asleep and play with their phones. And like, we had more questions than time, which I think was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They'll be like in there ignoring you and installing like some Android malware APK on their rooted
on their rooted phone. Hey, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
All you have to do is walk through the Shenzhen airport for that to happen. But that's a different story. You guys didn't get into watering holes earlier. Like you should totally do that.
Yeah, we talked about watering holes previously with certain news outlets being targeted, and that's drive-bys and whatnot.
Is there anything else? If we're running out of time, I was just trying to make sure. Is there anything else anybody wanted to talk about before I hogged this last half an hour?
Going back to that.
Go
generally
ahead.
Generational difference. Going back to the generational difference somebody brought up. Telling my grandkids that they needed to floss. I did not have the reaction that the response that I was expecting.
Yeah.
You get okay boomered.
Oh,
damn.
No,
I asked the kids to not okay boomer me.
Thank you.
No. It's like, no, it's not my generation.
I don't matter. We're Gen X don't matter. So
we're invisible.
During break, we had brought up two things, and I'm honestly kind of spacing on the second one. But did anybody have anything on that, or should we just stick on this topic? You think?
Dude, yeah, I totally like. I have not had a drink since the third week of September, and I poured some Stoli Vanille for this conversation, right? So, have you ever heard of Svalbard?
Nope. What is it?
The farthest northern populated island in the world. It's around 500 miles from the North Pole, and it's governed by treaty like Antarctica. So anybody's allowed to live there if you can find a way to make a living. And there is a Norwegian village, and there's a Soviet village called Barentsburg that still has a statue of Lenin. And I love Soviet villages. I've been all over the former Soviet Union, except for Russia. Haven't been. I've been in the I've been stuck there overnight in the airport, but I've never gone out into Russia. So it's really cool to me to get to go to an actual Russian place with no Russian visa. And of course, I hacked the trip there. So, we talked a little bit before about travel hacking, right? So. How deep do you want me to get in this? Should I get super wonky and technical?
About
I want to learn how to get free tickets and go to places for free.
27 minutes.
27 minutes? Okay.
No,
Teach me. I'm poor.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have any specific timelines, but yeah, the free trips are very close to free. All that stuff's, I'm sure, definitely interesting to hear.
Oh man, this is strong. Like, I'm not kidding. I haven't had a drink since since
But
the
I'll get too
30th
drunk. I
of
mean, we need to get
September.
this knowledge.
I look at like
That might be
increasing
that might be a good iteration. We take it like drunk history, except for drunk hacking, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah,
I get-
exactly. So here's the hack. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's hack drunk, testify sober.
That sounds like a good
One
plan.
time at a time.
I do this miles and points stuff, and one of the better ways to get points is to use credit cards from Chase, Citi, Amex, and Capital One, because they have what we call transferable points. So if you sign up for new credit cards and you watch the bonuses, you can actually get a whole whack of points for free. And, I have like a rental property, which is a business. So if you sell anything on eBay, you have a business. If you have a rental property, you have a business, right? You can sign up for all the business credit cards and you get giant amounts of points. So I signed up for a Chase credit card called the Chase Inc. Business Preferred. Cost me $95 and I got 80,000 points, which is more than a round trip to Europe worth of points. And so what I did with these things is I was interested in going to Svalbard, and I'm also interested in going to Moldova. And if you look on a map, they're not close to each other. Svalbard is 500 miles from the North Pole. It's like kind of wedged between Greenland and the like very tippy top of Norway. And also, it's not a cheap place to get to because it's like in the middle of freaking nowhere. And there's only like 2 airlines that fly there, and only one you can get to there on points. And then Moldova, it's like the poorest country in Europe. It's a former Soviet republic, and part of it's the breakaway, like de facto, like Republic of Transnistria, or Predestrovia as they call themselves. So it's like it's like a country, but not even a country. It's like nobody recognizes it except for like itself. And there's these 2 other breakaway republics that broke away from Georgia, and they all recognize each other. So, like if I was going to buy this ticket, it would be crazy money. It was like $4,800, something along those lines, to be able to do this, to go to both Svalbard and Moldova and come back here to Seattle. Points, all I paid was tax. So what I did is I took these credit card points that I got for like my rental property that isn't even a business really. It's just, but like legally it is. I transferred 60,000 of them to United. So with United, if you book a round trip, you get to do. And what that is if you have a round trip to like from one region to another region on their reward chart, you can take an additional one-way trip in any region except for the one that you departed from. So you can do some like even crazier hacks than this. Like I could have done like a round trip to, say Paris, and then done a one-way separately from like Cairo to Johannesburg, and that would have worked. Like that's legit. Or something all the way across Asia like would also have been legit. But in this case, like I just needed a really expensive intra-European flight, an $890 flight from Svalbard to like Moldova, right? So I ended up using the excursionist perk in the European region. And so what I'm doing is flying, and I had to leave from San Francisco because there was no award availability at all from Seattle. And that's kind of an important travel hacking tip, is like, if you're trying to get an itinerary to work, you can't always make it work from the city you live in. You might need to pick one nearby and then just buy a ticket there. But this is going to be fairly epic. And it's a crazy, crazy destination. I've got a day and, well, a little more than a day and a half there. So I'm totally going to make the most of it. And that's why I'm drinking vanilla vodka today, like kind of in celebration of this.
Oh, yeah.
So
So, but,
ask
hey,
me
but
anything
Robert,
about
from
miles and
somebody,
points.
yeah, okay. So somebody like me, right? My wife loves to travel. So what are like your top 3 or 5 things that I can try to focus us on to try to get free trips, right? Because you're telling me this long thing that you're passionate about, but I just need like those concrete things to try to execute on.
Oh yeah, totally. So, well, one thing that I think is really awesome as a concrete thing is it's really hard to use miles and points to go popular places that people have heard of. But if you
Okay.
want to go somewhere crazy like Svalbard that nobody's ever heard of, like it might
Hmm.
actually be possible. If you want to go check out like a former Soviet republic that's kept everything exactly like it was in the Soviet Union, then you can totally do that. And so, get a little bit creative with what you're looking for. Like I've, been able to book stuff that's, pretty awesome to places that are quite a bit off the beaten path. But I'm also going somewhere conventional. Like I'm taking the Hello Kitty plane in April, and I love Hello Kitty. So I bought Hello Kitty shoes to wear on the Hello Kitty plane. I'm not even
That's funny.
but I'll be taking the Hello Kitty plane in business class. And this is another fun award hack. It's cheaper to go so with Avianca Life Miles, you can do if you do a mixed cabin itinerary, meaning that you do partly business and partly in economy, they charge you based on mileage.
So I'm hearing look for spots that aren't super attractive, and now I'm hearing like a change up with the the ticket economy.
Yeah. No. So I promise there's a method to my madness.
Oh, okay.
So here's like another thing you can do. So the first thing is like look off the beaten path. The second thing you do is so how did I get this Hello Kitty plane ticket? I booked it way in advance. I booked it months ago. So like right when the calendar opened pretty much for the Hello Kitty flight. And so with miles and points, there's usually only a few seats per plane that they make available for free. So if you're looking super far in advance, you can often snag itineraries that are, pretty attractive. So if you want to go somewhere that's, more conventionally popular, then what you would want to do is book it super far in advance. Third thing you can do, think Asia. Like everybody wants to go to Europe in the summer. Why? The weather sucks in Europe in the summer. Everybody leaves the cities. It's freaking terrible. It's like hot and humid. They don't have air conditioning like we do in as many places as we do. So it's just, way better to go there in the spring and fall. And if you look off peak just a little bit, then, so think Asia or think off peak. And I guess that would be number 4. Think Asia because year round, there's really great award availability to Asia. I can get you to, outside of Asian holidays. And that's, the reason why Asia is really good is because they take different holidays than we do. So when it's really busy, like that's a great time to get on an Asian airline and fly to Asia because they'll still have seats available. And then thinking a little bit off peak shoulder seasons, there, it's better to go anyway then, and it's way less competitive to find award space. And I guess the 5th one that I'll give you is pick your miles and points program strategically. So, most people just like bank points with their favorite airline. Here in Seattle, like a lot of people. So there's just tons of people with a lot of Alaska points and they carry the Alaska credit card. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing, but it limits your flexibility because the only thing I can do with those points is book on Alaska and their partners. And that may not be the best combination for the trip you want to take. If you're going to Europe, Alaska's partners are lousy. If you're going to Asia, they have some of the best in the world. And so it really depends. And, they also partner with Emirates, which almost nobody else does. So if you want to fly somewhere Emirates goes, then they're great points for that. But if you bank your points with a bank program, and so that's American Express, membership rewards points, Citi Ultimate Rewards points, Citi is thank you points, Chase is Ultimate Rewards points, and Capital One has this thing called a Venture Rewards point. Those points are transferable. And so I can pick from like a whole bunch of different airline programs to move your points into. So when I'm booking a trip, I might end up doing one way with one airline program and alliance, and the other direction with another airline program and alliance. So having those points that you can move into different programs gives you a lot of flexibility that you don't have if you bank with just one airline.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah.
I think you're
another way to. Sorry.
Go for it, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say another way that you can gain points as well is airlines also have bug bounties and pay in points. So you can.
Oh, dude, that's totally true. United Airlines has a bug bounty and they pay in points. I have a friend who basically, like, he and one of his buddies, like, they're both pretty good at doing red team stuff and reversing things, and they banged on United's site and like got enough bug bounty points to go to New Zealand for like, what is it, KiwiCon down there?
KiwiCon?
Yeah.
Shout out to KiwiCon.
So I got like
used to be
KawaiiCon now.
Fancy, like life.
Oh man.
With those bug bounty points to New Zealand for KiwiCon.
I mean, I've been to DEF CON from Australia return on bug bounty points. And they were gifted to me by a bug bounty guy, and
same.
Where are you down there? I was just down in Australia a few weeks ago.
I'm in Melbourne. I'm in the south.
Oh, you're in Melbourne. I didn't go there. I went to Sydney for a day. Perth, I had 2 days there, and I was out at Christmas Island, which was pretty fun.
Yeah, Christmas Island's pretty cool. I'm sorry that you're in Sydney.
I liked Perth a lot more. It's like way more chill. Sydney was very Chinese. I was kind of surprised. Like there was a giant Bank of China, like in downtown. It's like there's like it's just very very Chinese there now. It's kind of been taken over by China.
It's a lot of our major cities, or Sydney and Melbourne specifically, have a lot of Chinese influence, I guess now. But if anyone is keen to come down, there's a lot of security conferences that do happen in Australia. So if your employer is sending you as well, check the calendar for one of those. There's at least like 3 or 4 B-sides now in major cities, so you can choose where you want to go and hit them up.
Have you been out to Christmas Island yet?
When I was younger, yeah. I've been out.
Yeah, now that is one hell of an interesting destination. Most people go because there's like some immigration prison or something out there. I had no interest in that. What I was more interested in is, it's ecologically like 2/3 of the island is a national park. And one thing that they don't tell you on the tourism sites though is it's on this garbage current from China and Indonesia. So the Christmas Islanders are not lazy. They're cleaning their beaches constantly, but like a week's worth of plastic, washing up on the beach just basically covers the whole thing in plastic garbage, like pretty much all Chinese. It's, like if you want any evidence that the oceans are dying, just go to Christmas Island. But leaving that aside, and I want to be really clear, the Islanders are not lazy. They take really good care of their beaches. There's just so much. It's really hard to stay on top of. There's like, if you're interested in birds at all, like you can walk into some of the most ecologically sensitive parts of the place, and like the park rangers trust you to not be stupid. It's just completely astonishing to me, like compared to other places, the amount of freedom that you have to to be a good steward of the environment is unlike anywhere else you'll go.
I'd actually like to take responsibility as an Australian for the garbage, because it's mostly Australian tourists in Bali. Bali is a huge destination for your average white trash Australian who wants to buy cheap knockoff sunglasses and cigarettes. And Bali is like, you can get there for the price of a domestic flight. So
that's where your Boggins go, right?
Bogans, yeah, Bogans.
Or is it Bogans? Yeah.
Bogans, yeah. That's the Bogan destination. So check. Yeah, that's where the trash comes from the northern seas.
So do Bogans there wear red "Make Australia Great Again" hats?
No, they wear blue singlets, which are known as wife beaters, and yeah, it's a very specific type of person.
Okay, and they're the ones that are driving around with like the stickers on their cars with like Calvin pissing on a Holden, right?
Or maybe the other way around on a Ford, but generally they'll have a Southern Cross tattoo because and probably a sticker on their car because they'll believe that you can only see the Southern Cross, the constellation, from Australia, even though it's on like a whole bunch of countries' flags. You can see it from the Southern Hemisphere. Lol. Australia.
Smart. I mean, makes sense.
Makes sense. Get it in Australia, Southern Cross.
Okay. Well, like Australia is mostly civilized. The food's good. They speak English, sort of. I'd certainly recommend a visit.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess Southeast Asian destinations that are pretty popular. I guess places like I think Thailand, I guess, is a popular one. There's a lot of people head over there. What other countries would you recommend, like, for us?
Well, for award travel, one place that's really opened up a lot is Japan. They're adding all these flights for the 2020 Olympics, but they're not just going then; they're starting now. So I've never seen better award availability to Japan, and it's just a wonderful country to visit. So I certainly recommend going. It's so cheap to go to China now; it's crazy. I just saw, round trip tickets. Like, it's not even worth using points to go there because you can buy a ticket in economy class for, I think it was $330 to Shanghai on Air Canada via Vancouver from Seattle. And I've seen fares below $300 round trip to China. The flip side of it is it's November and then you're in China. And I don't like being in Beijing in November. I lived there for 3 years. It's not fun. You have to walk backwards through your alleys because the wind's whipping through it like, negative degrees. And, it's crazy smoggy and like your lungs start bleeding. It's just not good. But yeah, and Hong Kong right now is super cheap, but I wouldn't go. I mean, the city's on fire. So it's, I mean, it's great to visit it's cheap to visit in the middle of a civil insurrection sometimes, but that isn't necessarily a recommended holiday destination.
Have you ever done that? I mean, who's capitalized on that?
I've been in. I got caught in the middle of something in the Golden Triangle once that was just criminal activity and versus cops, and I was in the wrong place at the wrong time on the Chinese side, and I got the hell out of there, fortunately. But there were literally bullets flying. That wasn't super fun.
Wow.
I mean, it just kind of is what it is, right? Like, it can happen in the world.
Yep.
And there's a lot of drug smuggling that happens and just bad people in that area. Vietnam is really heating up as a tourist destination, and it's it's still raw and edgy. It's like it's not a place if you don't have any experience traveling to go. But if you've been to Thailand and you're familiar with Southeast Asia, it's getting to be a more tourist friendly destination. So that may be worth a look. If you can overlook the genocide, Myanmar is a wonderful place to visit. It's like
if you can overlook the genocide.
If you can overlook the genocide. So if you are not
that's the quote for the episode.
Yeah. So if you're not Rohingya and being murdered by the Buddhists, then they're super perfectly friendly, like always smiling. And that's the thing. Like the world is full of crazy contradictions. So while genocide is going on in Myanmar, there's also I showed up at this place called Golden Rock. It's said to be held up by a strand of the Buddha's hair. And I didn't quite know how things worked or anything. So I just asked a tourist policeman, because people there speak English, hey, can you tell me how this works? Do I need to buy a ticket or what? And the guy took me to the front of the line, like escorted me in, gave me like some gold to paint on the rock. And he just thought that it was so cool that I'd come there, that like, and that I'd asked for like, asked what it was and didn't know, that it was his personal mission to show me. And you won't get, I mean, people don't do that anywhere, but like that happened there. And I had all these incredible experiences like that. So I wouldn't say like, don't go to Myanmar. I would say just be aware of, it's a complicated place. And so, the government's doing something and the military's doing something and the people are doing, and the people are who they are. And the three are not necessarily the same thing.
So I got a question, like heading to these lower income places as an American, where US dollars are basically gold bars, like a single is a gold bar, and you're carrying around obviously a laptop of some kind. How safe is it to have things like as a hacker, you obviously have your gadgets, and some people have quite expensive gadgets. Like what would you recommend that people take with them or not take with them?
Don't take anything you don't really care about losing, but it's not because it's going to get stolen. It's because the dugout canoe that you're riding in that's like really dodgy might like spill in the river, that may or may not have piranhas in it, in between Suriname and French Guyana. It's not that that's ever happened. But it's, there certainly are destinations people will steal your stuff. South America in particular, if you're walking around with an expensive smartphone, somebody is going to like grab it and run, more likely than not. So if you're in Quito, like don't be flashing out your expensive smartphone. It's pretty simple. Like you can be really discreet about taking pictures if you're going to do it. But like if you're walking around with $1,000 camera on a selfie stick, that's a different matter entirely. I have a cheap laptop. All my stuff's backed up in the cloud. If somebody jacks it, who cares? I carry an Android smartphone that's not super expensive. It's replaceable if it needs to be. I do keep a backup smartphone in my bag that's hacked, then I still at least have a way to make calls and take pictures. I've never had anything stolen directly from me. I've never been like, like I'll probably jinx it, right? But I've never been mugged. I worry most in cities like London, where there's an epidemic of mugging. I worry far less in places like Mexico City.
Interesting.
And places like Myanmar, like the culture there is to honor guests, and you get bad karma if you do bad things to people. So it's just like, unless it's genocide, because they just don't look at genocide quite, in a karmatic sense. But like the same people that would like, murder 10 people and then go have dinner with their family, like will never steal from you.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
They're at least polite.
Yeah, they're polite about their genocide.
Yeah,
and
they're polite. They're
those
polite
things.
battle with people.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just don't live in a headspace where it's okay to kill people because they don't share your religion. It's just not. That's not how.
Yeah.
I also don't live in a headspace that where if you don't share the same religion, you can't live in the same country.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a fair. it's obvious that, and it's great that hopefully we haven't forgotten how to disagree. That it's okay to disagree. It's okay to be passionate about different ways to hack things, hack travel points or hack education or whatever you want to hack. So I'm totally on board.
Yeah, for sure. But I'd actually like to encourage anybody who's listening is like kind of into this travel stuff and maybe wanting to take some of their own trips. I write a blog called Seat 31B because that's often the one that I'm stuck in, and I'm not even kidding. Like I did a review of like the worst seat on Qantas, like a few weeks ago. So that's seat SEAT 31B.com. Sierra Echo Alpha Tango 31 Bravo.com.
That's I like the rear seat, like at the back of the in the on the aisle. So when you got to get up to pee, like everyone wants the window. Like I hate the window. I want to.
No, dude. Like the middle seat is the one in the back, and it doesn't recline because the toilet's directly behind it.
Oh damn!
Then you're smelling everyone's poop.
So all you smell is airplane poop, and you need to pee and can't get out. And there's just like it's slightly less bad than the aisle seat, like right next to the toilet, because everybody stands at the aisle seat, like right next to you, farting like before they go into poop.
Also, in case of emergency, you're probably going to be the last one out, so good chance you'll die if you crash.
You're dying anyway.
and it's bumpy back there. It's bumpy.
By the way, I blame all of you for this terrible vodka choice that I've made. I poured slowly down because that's what I had cold. And oh my god, it's like, yeah, I think that I probably won't drink again for another month after this.
Power to you, man.
Yeah, definitely. That's admirable to not drink. Everyone should not drink unless you hear cyber war, in which case you do drink, but just a little bit.
Yeah, I just needed a break for a little while. That's all right. It's I felt like I was drinking more than I should if I didn't want to get fat.
It is definitely a big contributor to that.
I'm gonna have to take off soon. Is this that inappropriate, or where we at?
I think we're all about to take off pretty soon.
Yeah.
So,
Do a wrap up.
I think we're about to wrap up. Anybody else got anything else real quick? 1 minute plugs or anything?
Shut the fuck up, get a lawyer.
God damn it, that was mine.
Wait, that's ours. No, we share that one.
All right, we share that one. That's right. Shut the
Got a
fuck
lot
up,
of
get a lawyer.
plugs. Not many of them are 1 minute plugs.
I'm gonna add I'll add one real quick.
C code is fucking hard. You want a good trip down history lane? Program in C.
Yeah,
I'll add
Pico 8. Pico 8 is cool.
I'll add your mom's box to this episode. Make of that what you will. Anybody else?
I'll add that.
Chili.
I'll add that after programming in like 10 languages, Go makes me a better dad because I can trust my Go code more. So check out Go.
Cool.
Go's cool.
Well, thanks to all our guests who are still here and who have departed early. Thanks to everyone who shared their news articles, Goodreads, and links, contributed to the show codes, the show notes, the show codes.
The show codes.
Who's drinking?
Big shout out to you who wasn't here this week, NetSpooky on Twitter, who puts in countless hours and had to have a sleep. Always doing fantastic stuff, and in his absence, we realize how much he actually does. So I think with that, we should probably say goodnight, and we'll see you at some point in the future.
Hell yeah.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Shut the fuck up and get some sleep.
Fuck up, get a lawyer.
Stay up all night and look at places to go. Wander the world.
Wrap tight in a comfortable blanket, otherwise naked. Running in map skins against the targets I'm breaking. I'm making moves, gonna pivot on this network. I'm scouting, king of the mountain, acid, no going from faucet to fountain, no doubt. Stack of motor modems, dynamic leases. Bit unorthodox, I'm cheesing all these Cecils to pieces. Then ain't that Jesus. I'm walking on that water, boy. On this river made of tears, get them dollars, boy. Bitch, I'm a green hat, begging for cash, please believe that. I should buy, baby, where the weed at? I'ma need that. Pass me a blunt and a brownie, let's get these bounties. Sign that Pierre in the mountain. machine. See that? I keep my cap a richer shade of black so I can be that. Internet mercenary murking all these morons and facts. So watch me sneak past all the defenses you set up for a piece of this cash. Cause I'm a green hat, green hat, green hat. ThugCrowd, hacker one, and CDI function. Function shouldn't be afraid to take a split to the onion. When that proof of concept 0 day is more than a pain. Just be an opportunist, pass the bubble, what more can I say? I know you win. Marketplaces turn out wearing the Porsches. And the white hats that take courses just to reverse my sources. I'm chasing currency. Can I get a hallelujah? The first the whitey cracker is just trying to school ya. Get it for more than just achievements and ribbons. Making a living's why God gave us all the gift of the gifts. It's a game eternal. So shove another root kid in the kernel and wind up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Be an artist, harvest accolades and showcase his smartness. And don't let them do you like they did the homie now with Marcus from the darkness I ascend. On them leaderboards then, green hat ain't on that top 10. Top 10. See that? I keep my cap a richer shade of black so I can be that. Internet mercenary murking all these morons and facts. So watch me sneak past all the defenses you set up for a piece of this cash. Cause I'm a green hat, green hat, green hat.
Leave no music behind. Listen to your favorite playlists, albums,